Hello again, fellow BeachBum traders. We hope that you had a great trading week last week. We hope that you found our weekly game plan from last week helpful to you in your trading. Please let us know if you found our weekly game plan from last week helpful to you in the comments below. And please let us know how your trading went this week. Good or bad, what did you learn? How can we improve our weekly game plans to help you succeed in your trading? Now let's get started preparing our game plan for next week. Hello again, fellow BeachBum traders. It's time for us to start preparing our trading game plan for next week, for the week of October 18th through October 22nd. We hope you had a great trading week this past week. We hope that our game plan from last week helped you. Markets are turning as we kind of discussed the past couple weeks. We expected a bottom, us, Jim Cramer, etc. expected kind of a bottoming in mid-October and hopefully a turn up through the end of the year, hopefully. So let's talk about some of the things that happened at the end of last week. We can see on Friday the 15th, all of the indices were up 0.5 to 1%, with the Dow being the top performer. And we can see in the heat map, I'm on FinViz on the home page. Again, as always, you can find our affiliate link to FinViz in the description box below. You can see almost everything was green, very positive. Balanced advancers, decliners, more new highs, balance above the 50 SMA, and more balance. So it's a more balanced market right now. Hopefully we're seeing the upturn, and hopefully your P&Ls are looking better now. So if we briefly look at the news at the bottom of the FinViz homepage, we could see Bitcoin. A Bitcoin ETF is coming, and obviously that pushed Bitcoin up over 60K. A lot of hype in that right now. I guess that hits on Tuesday unless the SEC stops it, but it doesn't sound like that's probable. So we can expect more Bitcoin hype through at least the beginning of next week. And then we could see earnings as a big focus right now. So we're going to talk about the earnings calendar and how that might impact your trading decisions this week. So we also saw oil hit a new high this week. Right now the futures is showing 82.66. It's been pushing up over 82. We'll talk, and congratulations on anyone who was able to use drip to get that scalp this week. We're going to play that again. There's still predictions. Some people are predicting $100 oil, and others are like Jim Cramer saying it's topped. So somewhere between here and 100, it's probably going to top and turn down. We're going to continue to scalp it on the way up as long as that continues to be a play. We can see natural gas finally kind of turned down. So right now it's hovering between 5 and 6. Not clear what direction that's going to go. We saw gold push up over 1800. We'll see that in the futures, and we'll talk about where that's headed. We also see the treasuries a little below 1.6. I believe it hit 1.6 during the week, and then receded. So in a second we'll look at the futures, but let's talk about some of the events that occurred last week in the economic calendar, and then let's look at the economic calendar for next week. First, I want to quickly take a detailed look at each of the indices. We can see where they are and what direction they might go. Here's the SPY. For the S&P 500, we can see it jumped above, gapped up above its 50-day SMA. It's sitting in the middle of its, near the middle of its range right now. Again, that type of gap up, and in that position, we could see a retracement. So don't be surprised if we get a little retracement. It may retrace back to the 50 SMA and bounce back up, but we do expect a longer term upward trend. So we may, in the next couple weeks, we may see a new high in the S&P after some retracement, some gap fills. So don't be surprised if we get a little retracement, or it may gap up again and then retrace. So again, it's key to be nimble. Take what the market gives you at that time. We're going to see similar behavior in all the indices. They all gapped up. However, the Qs, you can see it's approaching its 50 SMA. It would not be surprising to see it hit the 50 SMA and bounce down. So again, we may get a retracement in the Qs, particularly since there's other factors like the treasury yields, etc., inflation, that may impact the tech heavy NASDAQ. So the Dow performed better end of last week. We can see it jumped up above its 50 SMA. It jumped above this support level. It's sitting, near the higher end or the higher quartile of its channel. Again, we might get a pullback to support and then a bounce up, but everything's looking up again. IWM, which is the Russell. Again, we can see it broke above the top of its channel and then kind of retraced a bit. So it's testing the top of its channel. We might see some further tests and hopefully a breakout to the upside. Or it may turn back down and bounce in its channel somewhere. It's always hard to tell, right? So again, the key is being nimble and adapting to what the market behavior is. So if we quickly look at biotechs, they really haven't changed much. There's nothing positive. It's just kind of hovering. The XBI, the IBB. Again, I don't see any strong movement in biotech, and so we're not really focusing on any of the biotechs right now. And the VIX, we saw it actually dropped below 16 on Friday. We are watching UVXY to bottom. When it does, we're going to go long UVXY, long the VIX. We do have the Fed tapering coming up in November. That may cause a spike in the VIX, and so we want to be in a position where we can take advantage of any spikes in the VIX when that occurs. I'm not sure if the VIX is going to stay at about 16 or if it could drop down to the 14 level. So we're watching it to see where it bottoms and turns, and then we're going to go long UVXY. So now we'll take a look at the futures, and then we'll go from there. So if we take a real quick look at the futures, we can see they all look on an upward trend, a little extended at this point, which again reinforces our hypothesis that we may see some retracement. They are getting quite extended there. The Russell did retrace already a little bit, so we may get a bounce in the Russell. We can see the VIX is dropping pretty precipitously, so we might get a little bounce in the VIX and then further reversion. We can see, and a lot of the talking points are going to be around oil and gas, the high prices in oil and gas. You're starting to hear a lot more discussion about, high gas prices, high heating oil prices. What if we have a colder than normal winter? As we go forward, one of the things I want to discuss with our fellow BeachBum traders is the impact of these higher gas prices, etc., and higher inflation on discretionary spending, consumer discretionary spending, and how that may impact some of the companies we may want to invest in for the holiday season, which really won't show up in earnings until first quarter 22. Right now we're seeing earnings for the summer, so we're seeing the results of the behavior from the summer. and we're not going to see the results from the fall and winter until later this year. So we'll be discussing that in the future, and some hypotheses about what that means for investing. We saw gold peaked up over 1800, kind of retraced. It's testing that 1800 level. If it breaks through, hopefully it'll go to 2000. We saw silver made a nice run and then retraced a little bit. All the precious metals started running up again. You can see copper's pretty extended. Unfortunately, I can't find a leveraged ETF to short copper either. Unfortunately, because it looks pretty extended at this point. So treasuries, we can see it ran up in price a little bit and then retraced, so yields dropped a little bit and then retraced back up a little bit. Again, we expect yields to go up, prices to come down as the Fed tapers. So, and we can see the dollar retrace down a little bit. Well, again, that will support commodity prices when the dollar declines. So now we'll talk about some of the events that occurred last week to explain some of this behavior, and then what can we expect potential events for next week that may impact our decisions. Okay, let's talk about some of the economic data results we saw from last week. We talked about this in our game plan from last week of, what were economic data that was going to be reported and what impact that might have. And on the 13th, we got the CPI data, inflation data, consumer price index data, an indication of inflation. It was slightly hotter than expected, and there was talk that this may accelerate the Fed's taper and interest rates. And those discussions accelerated through the week. We don't expect any change in the schedule for the Fed's tapering. We expect them to start in November, finish in mid-2022, probably the June timeframe. However, again, there's discussion that maybe they'll taper at a faster rate than previously because of inflation. There's also talk by some of the Fed officials that they're recommending that rate hikes should occur sooner. So you'll probably hear more discussion of that, of sooner interest rate hikes. So far, the discussion has been that they wouldn't start interest rate hikes until after they finish tapering, which again means it wouldn't be until after second half of 2022. But again, you're starting to hear a lot of discussion, debate about shouldn't they be raising interest rates because inflation is not transitory. It's hotter than expected. It's going to continue, particularly because of oil and gas prices, supply chain issues, etc. On the 14th, we got producer price index data, and it was lower than expected. But the producer inflation increased more than the consumer inflation. So what that is indicating in the discussion is that, okay, some of these prices have not flowed through the supply chain yet, and so some of the input costs that are going up are yet to hit the store shelves, or yet to hit the consumer's pocketbook, and that we continue to expect higher inflation, and that's going to impact how the consumer spends their money. And in terms of investors, you would expect them to head for higher dividend stocks, higher value stocks, because you need to be able to beat inflation, right? So also on the 14th, we got jobless claims. That was better than expected, and I believe that's part of what spurred the rallies in the indices in the markets. So oil, we saw there was a reduced demand forecast on the 13th, and inventories were higher than expected on the 14th. And one would have expected that both of those things, lower demands, higher inventories, would drive the prices down, and they did initially go down. That's when we scalped oil and drip, and then they started pushing back up. And as earlier, as on the 15th, the high was 82.48. Now we're seeing that the high in the futures is 82.66. So again, oil's continuing to push up, and some people again are predicting $100 oil. So at this point, we just need to watch it closely and play it however it's going to go. We'll continue to scalp with drip. When it finally turns down and keeps heading down, then we'll just trail that stop in drip and cash out as much as we can get. Nat gas, the storage was less than expected on the 14th, but again the price dropped. So again, that was counterintuitive. And we'll see what happens with nat gas. If it goes to 6 or 7, again we'll be looking to scalp it using cold. On the 15th, we got retail sales. It was better than expected. Again, we're seeing data being reported from September, so the end of summer. And again, people got out in the summer, they spent their money. Now we've got higher inflation. We'll have to see how this plays out. Saw manufacturing was below expectations. We saw import prices were up. Export prices were down. So again, that says the things we're bringing in are costing more, the things we're sending out, we're making less. That doesn't bode well for the economy, right? And we saw consumer sentiment was lower than expected on Friday. Again, all those things seem to indicate the future economy is not boding as well. Although, given all that data, we saw the VIX drop. So there's a lot of confusing signals going on in the markets right now. So we need to be nimble, watch where it's actually going, and adapt accordingly. So I'm on the economic calendar on investing.com. We can see the news that's going to be reported this week. Again, you can get to this easily from the menu on investing.com. I'll put links to this in the description box as usual, but you just select economic calendar. You can see current day, next day, this week, next week. Let's look at what can we expect. We'll see some production, housing data on Monday, Tuesday, then again some more housing type mortgage data, and then we get oil inventories that may impact the oil prices on Wednesday. We'll get some gas, heating oil again on Wednesday, so Wednesday may be a volatile day for oil, and then Thursday we get jobless claims again. If things are looking better, that may be a positive sentiment. If things degrade, that may be a negative sentiment. We'll have to watch and see. And then we get some manufacturing data, and then more oil inventories, and then commodities. So commodity data on Friday. Please review these calendars on a regular basis and know what events may impact the stocks that you're looking to buy, sell, or the positions you're currently holding. We hope this helps. Okay, since we're right in the middle of a heavy earnings reporting period, I wanted to talk about the earnings calendar, and I Googled around and looked at a variety of earnings calendars and ended up coming back to investing.com, and I found their earnings calendar to be the best that I could find quickly. I'll put a direct link in the description box below to this earnings calendar, but you can always get to it on investing.com by going to the markets menu, stocks, and then earnings calendar. And you can look at it on a daily basis, this week, next week, just like the economic calendar. Again, this is under the markets, stocks tab, and it will list everyone expected to report earnings. I'm looking at next week starting the 18th, and we can see who all's reporting earnings. And why do you care? Well, if you own one of these stocks, obviously if they have good earnings, they tend to go up. Bad earnings, they tend to go down. But also, we're looking for sympathy plays. So if a company in a particular industry or sector reports good earnings, then others in that sector, particularly that are closely related to them, tend to go up. Or if they have bad earnings, people say, well, that maybe that the economics of that sector are bad, and so they start bidding down the stock price of related stocks. So it's good to know, okay, who's reporting earnings when, and what sectors is that potentially impacting. So I'm just going to whip through it really fast, and we can see, Monday we've got some miners, some metals, some grocery stores, steel, uranium, some banks, financials. Again, this you just try to get a feel for, okay, what sectors and industries are going to get impacted on what day. Okay, Tuesday we got J&J, Procter & Gamble, Netflix. Okay, so some of the FANG names are going to start reporting, and that's not only going to impact the FANGs, but the NASDAQ as a whole, right? And with Netflix, it's other streamers, etc. So then we've got some transports, we've got some more banks, we've got some more banks, and we've got some airlines. Again, we just want to get a feel for, okay, who's reporting when, and I won't go through it in detail. You could do Kinder Morgan, a big miner, Biogen, big biotech. So again, it's valuable to know, okay, is this going to impact the stock you own or looking to buy? When is their earnings? It's always good to know when the earnings date is. You may want to wait until they report and see the reaction before you make a buying or selling decision. So again, hope this helps, and we'll see some detail also in the Webull Markets tab in a second, and we'll look at sectors and markets, how they ended up on Friday, and then we'll make some decisions as to how to update our watch list for next week. Okay, so now I'm on the Markets tab in the online browser version of Webull. As always, you can find our affiliate link to Webull in the description box below. Get 2 or more free stocks if you're not already using Webull. Also, I have a video coming out that focuses on this Markets tab and how you can use this. Will be coming out soon, so I'll go through this kind of quickly. Again, we can see all the indices were green, more advancers than decliners. We can see net inflows. We can see NYSE had stable inflows. Again, we saw NASDAQ had kind of drifting outflows and then a spike at the very end. Friday happened to be options expiration date. I expected more volatility. We didn't really get the volatility, but it looks like there was some significant inflows into the NASDAQ at the end of Friday. The earnings calendar, again, this is another place where you can see at least the next couple days of who's reporting earnings. Since we already looked at that in detail, I won't belabor that right now. Want to look at the top gainers and losers from after hours on Friday to see if that indicates any trend. So I'll look at the top gainers after hours, see if there's, a sector or industry that's trending. I don't see anything. Look at the top losers, see again if anything, sectors trending down. I don't see a trend in that data. So then if we look at the best performing industries, we see retail, mostly earning reports triggering an up in retail at that point. Financials, automobile, transports. I definitely wanted to point this out because I was doing this earlier and I discovered what I think is a diamond in the rough, and we will be releasing a detailed video on this, so doing our due diligence. And we'll talk about it in terms of our watch list for this week. But I happened to see this LMFA, LM funding, and it was up 38% on Friday, and wasn't sure exactly what they did. Was that a Chinese stock, or what's behind that pop? So we did our due diligence on LM funding, LMFA, and again, you'll see that in our due diligence video, and we'll talk about it when we get to our watch list. But this is one of the reasons I do this every week, is you discover some diamonds in the rough or particular trends that you weren't aware of. We see paper products. There's been talk of a shortage in cardboard boxes and things like that. So again, I find this information very helpful. I've been using this more and more on a daily basis, even intraday in Webull. If we look at the ETF flow, we can kind of see up on the Dow, up on the Dow, up on the S&P, up on the NASDAQ, and shorting the Russell. So they're betting the Russell's going down, so that tells us something, right? They're shorting the VIX a little bit, so they're still pushing the VIX down. I don't see UVXY, so people don't think the VIX has bottomed yet. So again, this tells me some useful information. We can look at industries, industrials, healthcare, financials, utilities, communications were down, energy was mixed. Earlier in the week we saw uranium had a run, solar renewable had a run. They're not running right now, so that looks like that run may be over. If those turn down, particularly uranium, might be an opportunity again in that sector. Copper, we see copper was up. We saw that in the futures as well. Consumer defensive down. Consumer cyclical still okay, but consumer defensive was down. So that's interesting. Look at commodities. We're going to see, copper's up, aluminum's up, nickel's up. A lot of the commodities are up. We kind of know that again from the futures. And then, okay, so as you can see, there's useful information. This combined with the futures, combined with the indices, allows you to get a real good feel for the direction of the market, the direction of certain sectors and commodities, etc. And then we can make buying and selling decision. Do we want to long or short an index or a commodity? And then we could talk about individual stocks that maybe underperform or outperform in our particular sector. So I hope this all helps. Now we'll start putting together our watch list for next week. Okay, now that we've got a good feel for the futures and the sectors and the indices and where everything stands from last week and the upcoming events and the earnings calendar, now let's make our updates to our watch list for next week, the week of October 18th through the 22nd. And firstly, let me congratulate all of our fellow BeachBum traders who also took advantage of the drip scalp last week and made some money. We hope you profited from that. We again continue to plan to scalp drip as the price of oil pushes up past 82, 83, possibly towards 100. If it peaks out, then we'll go long on drip and then scalp it when oil comes down until it starts to make a continuous downtrend. So congratulations again, and keep watching the price of oil for opportunities to scalp drip. We're going to continue to watch cold, which is the short on natural gas. If it dips and bottoms somewhere around 557, if nat gas spikes around 6 or 7 as we've discussed, then again same thing. We'll long cold, wait for a top, and trail that with a stop, and continue to scalp cold if nat gas happens to go back up. Also, congratulations to all of our fellow BeachBum traders if you got into The monthly dividend paying REITs, Realty Income or LTC, which had a nice run last week and are continuing to push up, which is great. So something to consider is they do pay a monthly dividend, so what we did and what we would recommend is calculate what the monthly dividend is, when the ex-dividend date is, when does it pay out, and consider the profit that you're making in the increased share price versus the monthly dividend. We are trailing that with a stop because we calculated that increased share price profit is higher than the monthly dividend that we would receive. So if it happens to top out and turn down, we'll take profit on that, even if it costs us that monthly dividend, and then buy in again at a lower price. So it's something to consider with these is, what's your best profit opportunity with dividend stock. So now let's look at our watch list in Webull. I'm on the stocks tab in Webull. We have a number of watch lists. We do our weekly watch list in my watch list tab. If you're new to our BeachBum trading community, we have previous videos on how to create a watch list in Webull, how to maintain a watch list from this stock screen in Webull. So I will put links to those videos in the description box below. Please review those as to how we build and maintain this watch list. So very quickly, let's go through our updates for this week. We're going to leave ARIE Air Industries Group on our watch list. We recently published a due diligence video that premiered yesterday, on Saturday, October 16th. So you can please go see that due diligence video, which was published last week before this news came out that they got I think it was $5.2 million contract on a heavy lift helicopter, and it briefly spiked up to 152 on the 14th, and then you'll see it kind of trailed back off. This is kind of how ARIE tends to behave, is it will spike on news like a contract like this, and you'll even hear that in my due diligence video that this is its tendency, but it doesn't tend to hold those gains. So it's trailing off and making a nice bull flag. We're going to leave it on the watch list, and we're going to continue to watch it for a price target around 1, and assuming it will come back down there, we will then go long and again wait for a spike like this. So we'll leave ARIE on the watch list and look for this type of behavior, and if you happen to get long before that news came out and took profits, that's great. We're going to continue to leave DDD 3D Systems on the watch list. It had run up, but then it got an analyst downgrade late in the week last week. It started trailing down. We'll see if it does come down to that $25 support level, and if so, we would go long 3D Systems. It also seems to be lagging some of the other 3D printers, so there may be an opportunity there. We talked about that we're going to continue to watch DRIP for potential scalping opportunities. The previous low was there. It has dipped lower than that. It will go lower than that. The current low is 473, but if oil pushes past 83, obviously that would be lower. So we're really just looking for where's the bottom, where's oil going to peak and turn down, and that would be the opportunity to long on DRIP. We're going to leave Imagine is a ARVR play. We'll leave it on the watch list. It hasn't really come down to the support level we're looking for, which is about a 205. You see it started to run up on really no news, and then formed the bull flag. It may be trailing back down. We'll leave it on there to see if it comes back down to that support, or if it bottoms and turns up again, then we would long EMAN. We'll leave EPCAP, which is a small regional bank. It just hasn't stabilized at a support level that we'd like, which is about 40. These low floats are a little bit frustrating. They chop around. It's hard to see a trend. They don't get a lot of volume, so we're really looking for it to come down to support, get some volume, make a good trend on the upside, and then we would go long EPCAP. FANG D is the short on the FANG stocks. If the NASDAQ and the FANGs turn back up, reach a new high, we would again short the FANGs. This includes some Chinese tech stocks, and so there's some good downside opportunity potential there. We talked about coal. We're going to continue to look for scalping opportunities similar to DRIP. If nat gas peaks 6 or 7, coal could drop down, to this bottom 557 again, or below. And so we'll continue to look for scalping opportunities in coal. We're adding LMFA, LM Funding America, to our watch list for this week. And you will see a due diligence video coming out soon on LMFA. This is a diamond in the rough that I discovered while running my scans to prepare my watch list for the week. And I happened to see in the Webull Markets tab, as you'll see in the due diligence video, that this had run up on Friday like 38%, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what LMFA, what was behind them, and so I started digging, started doing my due diligence, and happened to find out that although you won't see any mention of this on their websites, etc., Twitter feeds, they are getting into Bitcoin mining, and they're buying something like 5,000 Bitcoin mining rigs. They're in Tampa, Florida. They're partnering with a company in Miami, Florida, to build low carbon rigs, structures for their rigs, and building out a data center. And they expect to be mining 1,200 Bitcoins per year, starting in second quarter of 2022. So I believe this is a Bitcoin miner, a future Bitcoin miner that is pretty unknown. I don't hear this name mentioned a lot in the various social media and trader forums, discords, etc. And I think this is a great opportunity. You can see we have a price target around 4-ish, but we're just looking for where is this bull flag going to stabilize and turn. We'll probably go long on LMFA very soon. Again, because with Bitcoin running up and the hype hot on the ETF coming this week, we think when this one gets found, we could see a nice upside up to this 718. There's another high around 780. We think there's a nice opportunity on an unknown Bitcoin mining stock, LMFA. And please watch for that due diligence video coming out soon. We're going to leave Tatron Industries, or Tatron Components, on the watch list. You'll see our due diligence video from the 9th. Please view that, and you can see our justification. Tatron started running up already. We're not going to chase it up here. We're going to see if we get an opportunity. If it comes down a little bit to support and then turns back up, we'll take Tatron, but we're not going to chase it. UVXY is the long on the VIX. Again, the VIX had dropped below 16 briefly late last week. We're looking for where is the bottom. Is it going to drop down to 14? Is it going to stabilize at 16? Wherever the VIX bottoms, we're going to go long the VIX using UVXY, which is the leveraged ETF on the VIX. We're going to take VOO off the watch list. This is the long. It's a low cost index fund on the S&P 500. The S&P's already kind of run up. This is a very long-term investment, and we'll just wait for the S&P to come back down. So we're gonna take BO off the watch list for now, and we'll put it back when the S&P comes back down. When we had on the watch list again, and it happened to get news, is WWR, Westwater Resources, and we had it on the watch list, and they dropped news after hours on the 11th that they got the go-ahead to build out their graphite plant in Coosa, Alabama, and it popped on that news. You can see it spiked 439 after hours on that news, and again, we weren't going to chase it at that point, but you can see again, WWR is a very volatile stock. It has a tendency to run up on news, spike, come back down. Again, it's very volatile. When it runs, it does make some nice runs. We can see that it's coming back down and forming again potentially a nice bull flag. And I did not see any news of an offering, although what I did discover, and we will probably do a due diligence video on this information very soon, is okay, so they got approval from their board, etc. So I did some initial digging, some due diligence, and found out that their current cash position is 122 million. And in these articles, they expect the expenditures for phase 1, is just phase 1, not completion, of 202 million to execute the construction for phase 1. What does that mean? Well, it means that they're going to have to raise capital. So I didn't see an offering on that pop, so expect that when it pops and the price runs up, they're going to drop an offering, and it's going to, plummet. Now, we're going to leave it on the watch list because I still think there's a great opportunity. They're going to be dropping news probably before end of year, because they're talking about this phase 1 starting construction before the end of the year. And they're going to be wanting to drop news so they can get this stock price to pop so they can drop an offering. So again, I think this is still a great opportunity. Somewhere in this 325, 330-ish range. We're going to leave WWR on, look for that bottom, go long, wait for the news to drop, catch the pop, take profit, and get out. We don't want to hold this long term because, again, we expect as soon as it tops out, they're going to drop an offering and the price is going to plummet because they need capital to complete that construction. And again, watch for the due diligence video to come out soon on that. So that completes our updates to the watch list for this week, the week of the 18th through the 22nd. And we hope you have a great trading week. We hope that you like our weekly game plan for the trading week for this week. Thank you for watching the video to the end. If you found this helpful, we hope that you will choose to subscribe to our BeachBum Trading YouTube channel. And please click the bell icon below to automatically be notified whenever we publish a new video. Please also share this with your fellow traders and friends via the share button included below. And let us know if you found our weekly game plans helpful in the comments included below. And let us know how we can improve. What would you like to see more, less of, etc. Thank you again for watching. Good luck and have a great trading week. Bye.